27 years of sanction, to the extent that if you look at some of the think tanks in the Western countries, such as the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, that says that in terms of the number of strategic industries that countries have, Iran actually ranks above Japan, right? So, all of these achievements, building a strong military, uh, you know, maintaining the political independence of the countries in the face of so many countries in this region signing the Abraham Accords with the Israeli regime and United States, and basically, abandoning the Palestinian cause, championing for the prosperity and the future of the Iranian civilians, and making the stand until the last moment. I was watching your program before I come on your panel, and he was talking about the religious aspect of Ayatollah Khamenei's life and career as this high-level politician, and how he basically followed the footsteps of Imam Hussein. So there is that religious aspect as well. So as you mentioned, it shouldn't be any surprise to anyone that this man has been able to mobilize this amount of people into the Iranian streets, in his funeral procession.
Well, on that point, Mr. Safarnija, I'd like to thank you as always. I'm going to go ahead and come back to you, but let me go ahead and welcome and joining us here in our studio is our Press TV colleague, Humaira Ahad. Humaira, as always, thank you very much for joining us. Humaira, I mean, as we have been covering this very historic event over the last 3 days, today's day 4, if we're going to go ahead and count from when the foreign delegations did come in. But you have been there on the streets. You've been at the Musalla, the Grand Imam Khomeini Musalla. You've been on the streets of Tehran. I'm sure you've been speaking to and seeing a lot of people. There's been a lot of chants. There's been a lot of eulogies taking place during this very, again, historic farewell ceremony, funeral processions now as we are witnessing. And there's been a lot of the echoing of grief, of devotion, but even as hope has been going on there from the people. In regards to the specific points, we know the grief, we know the devotion, but in regards to the point on hope, I mean, how would you explain it to the viewers who are saying, what do we mean that the people still have this hope and they're here in the end preparing to bury their martyr leader?
Yeah, you are absolutely right. I have been on the street since the last few days, talking to people, talking to foreigners as well, talking to Iranians, and our viewers have been seeing the outpouring of grief. We have been talking about the grief, the amount of love they had for their beloved leader, that we have been witnessing for the last few days. But if we talk about the hope that we are witnessing is also exemplary, and I think that can be compared to the amount of the grief that we are witnessing. The slogan that has been put forward for the funeral ceremony is that we shall rise, and this we shall rise in itself is hope, and that hope is quite visible on the streets of Tehran. If you talk to people, the Iranians, they are saying that, yeah, we are grieved, we are mourning the passing away, the martyrdom of our beloved leader who was a father to us. But at the same time, he has given us that strength to rise against the imperial powers of the world. And it has actually instilled a lot of energy in this movement. Maybe before his martyrdom, we know that Iran has always been standing against the imperial powers of the world, but maybe it was not as strong as it is now. Before his martyrdom, people were not so much thinking about in these terms. But now, when we talk to people on the roads, when you talk to people at the funeral ceremony, they are saying that now they have all the curtains that were there when we talk about the America or Israel or other Western countries. They have been lifted, and now they can very barely, very nakedly see how barbaric these countries are. And now it is our foremost duty to rise against this barbarism, to rise against this form of hegemony and imperialism. So in talking about how hope has been instilled in the population in Iran, so I would definitely say that the martyrdom of the leader of the Islamic Revolution, Sayyid Ali Khamenei, has played a very significant role in actually also making people aware of what these imperialist powers have been doing, and also if there were any people who were in slumber, for them also this has been a moment where they have now risen and understood that there is no other way except for us to rise against this these barbaric powers. And you know, there was a section of people who would say that you know, we can have another way, we can talk to them, we can have friendly relations with the with different countries, but now they have understood that it is that they are based on this violence, they are based on this barbarism, and the only thing that they understand is force and the rising of people. So this is the hope that we are seeing on the streets of Tehran during the last few days.
Well, on that point, Ahmad, I'd like to thank you for that. I'm going to go ahead and get back to you. Let's go and cross back over to Mr. Jonkers. I believe you're still with us, joining us from Belgium. Mr. Jonkers, I mean, again, at the moment, it's just a reminder for our viewers, they are, the crowds are, of course, encircling Azadi Square at the moment, at 10 kilometer. And we're also seeing prayers taking place. It's almost 12:30, of course. The midday prayer has been, of course, called upon. People are taking place, the prayers in the streets. As people are still coming into the streets to join these funeral processions. This is a very important point to symbolize. I mean, it started at 6 a.m. this morning, almost 12:30 this afternoon. And again, it is already expected, as the spokesperson of the committee had mentioned, a 10 to 12 hour funeral ceremony simply here and here before, of course, Ayatollah's holy body will be swifted off to the holy city of Qom tomorrow, where this procession will continue. I do want to ask you in regard, Mr. Jonkers, to what we are witnessing on the ground. Our previous guest joining us from another location had mentioned that it's about abandoning the Palestinian cause. If we do talk about a bit about how the leader had declared so many times that Palestine is the central pillar of all of his efforts, and about how Muslim unity will free Palestine. Of course, we'll hopefully pray in Al-Quds as its capital one day. It's very important. I mean, we spoke earlier about the importance of unity, specifically among Muslims, but specifically how he used to relate it to the freedom of Palestine with everything that Palestine has been going through. We're not going to say the occupied lands, because Palestine will be free. We know this through all of our continuous efforts. But the thing is, this has not simply been going on for the past 3 years. It's been going on for decades. And yet still, the silence of the people are letting this genocide continue. How important is the Palestinian cause, specifically to how Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, let's also remind our viewers, Imam Khamenei is the one who also designated Al-Quds Day. How important is Palestine specifically in this issue?
Yeah, I think the Palestinian issue is a central issue of in the life of Sayyid Ali Khamenei, and it's a central issue that the Islamic Revolution and the entirety of the Islamic Republic of Iran has carried with it throughout its existence. And this is an issue that has also been placed central, of course, in movements such as Hezbollah, in movements like Ansar Allah, and in the resistance movements in places like Iraq. And I think there are various reasons for this. Of course, Palestine is the one place that feels the brunt of Western imperialism, perhaps stronger than any other place in the Islamic world, because we're not just talking about regular bombing and about targeted assassinations, but we're talking about direct occupation. We're talking about invasion, occupation, land theft, colonization, settler colonialism that has been going on for 80 years straight now. Because this is a conflict that, of course, it didn't start with the genocide in Gaza in the past 3 years. It didn't even start in 1967, like many Western liberal pundits like to say. They basically put the start date at the Six-Day War. This is something that started militarily, officially in 1948, and in some ways already started as far back as 1917, after the Balfour Declaration, when the first Zionist terrorist gang started roaming and rampaging through Palestine. So these are, in all of the Islamic world, the one place that is still directly occupied and directly colonized by Western imperialism, because let's be honest, that's what the Zionist project, Zionist entity is. They are not indigenous people, even though they claim that that since they are Jewish, that means that they are Semitic descendants, of course, of the people of the land, which is not true. It's a laughable assertion. that has no scientific basis and that they have never even bothered to prove for themselves or for the world. This is an outpost of Western imperialism, of the worst and most criminal aspect of colonialism that the West still has maintained throughout the years, even though the colonial era, fortunately, for the most part, is over. But it goes, of course, further than that. This is not just a piece of land. This is a holy land. This is a holy territory that has the holy city of Al-Quds laying in it, which is the place, of course, of the night journey of the Prophet, peace be upon him. This is the place where a lot of the Banu Israel prophets lived and worked and preached. This is one of the places where monotheism was first practiced and first really taken by as a standard religion by a nation, by an entire people. And so this is it's a holy land. This is a very significant place for all Muslims, as well as actually for all Christians, which unfortunately many Christians seem to have forgotten by now. And I think for all these reasons, the colonial aspect, the resistance aspect, the religious aspect, and of course the basic humanitarian aspect that the occupation of Palestine has turned into the experimental lab in which every sort of colonial repression apparatus, every sort of inhumane torture method is first being used by the IDF, is being tested to then be exported to the rest of the West and then the rest of the world. I think all of these reasons are reasons why Sayyid Ali Khamenei decided that Palestine was a crucial key issue for the entirety of the Islamic Revolution.
Well, on that point, I mean, as always, it's very interesting that no matter how much we talk about his legacy, his messages, his guidance, time is never enough. I'd like to thank you very much for joining us there, historian and journalist. Mr. Brecht Jonker, joining us from Hasselt, Belgium. A pleasure to have you with us, sir.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Viewers, let's go and cross back over to our esteemed guest, Mr. Safanijad, joining us from Shiraz. You know, Mr. Safanijad, when we're talking about, again, how Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei had given us so many messages and guidance through his speeches, whether in person, whether not in person, of course. I mean, he spoke of the enemy in so many different ways. He used to say that he spoke of Zionism as a, quote, capitalist network that imported terrorists into Palestine. He used to describe, of course, America as a great Satan. He used to always remind us of the reality of who our enemy is. How would you say he has prepared us to confront and to resist what is to come? Because we know, as history has shown, and what we know of the enemy from the Zionist regime, from the U.S. imperialism, and of course their own allies, that enough will never be enough. Yes, Mr. Ahsan, can you hear me? So it seems we have Mr. Ahsan Safanijad. Can you hear me? Not a problem. It seems that we have lost our guest, so we're going to go ahead and get back to him as soon as we can. Let's go ahead and put that question aside. We're going to bring it back to Mr. Safanijad when he's able to join back. Let's bring it back in my Press TV colleague, Humaida, joining us here in the studio. You know, Humaida, again, there are still no estimates in regards to the numbers. We are simply, of course, saying millions of millions. The expectation at the beginning, as a spokesperson, the committee had said, due to the organizations, it's expected between 12 and 20 million. Some mainstream media are saying that that number has even surpassed already, but again, we're waiting for the officials' numbers from the Iranian correspondents and officials on that point. I mean, Humaida, as someone who lives here in the capital of Tehran, when we see these specific images, we've seen the Islamic Revolution gatherings, remembrance. We've seen, of course, Ashura, the 10th day of Ashura, of course, the 10th day of Muharram, when Imam Hussein was sacrificed and martyred. We've seen so many occasions take place, specifically in the capital of Tehran. How would you describe what we are at the moment seeing in front of us?
If I have to describe this, I would say I have never seen these types of crowds in Tehran. I have been living in Tehran for a couple of years now. I was here during the funeral ceremony of martyred, IRGC commander Qasem Soleimani. At that time also there were hundreds of thousands of people, but what we have been witnessing since the last 2 days, I think it breaks all records. We also saw that there was news coming in about the Iranian Tehran metro. 7 million people have used the metro in the last 2 days. So that's only about metro. There have been people who have been coming through buses. There have been people who have been coming using their own transport. So there are hundreds and millions of people, and the figure is not any sort of exaggeration. This is what we have seen with our own eyes on the streets of Tehran. For you to reach Musalla, it would take at least a couple of hours. And yesterday, while I was going from my home to Musalla, it took me 3 hours to reach Musalla, and the normal distance on usual days is at least not more than 20 minutes.
Well, exactly, Humaira. I don't mean to cut you off, but we are going to go and cross over to Azadi Square there in the capital, of course, of Tehran, where our correspondent Mariam Azar is joining us. Mariam, as always, thank you very much for joining us again in the heart of this historic event. What updates you have for us in regards to the crowds, the anticipation, and of course, the atmosphere around you? Yes, we're going to go ahead and get back to our correspondent. Yes, Mariam. Great. So our communication has been set back in.
Republic of Iran has always been questioned by the insignificant enemies of this country, the leaders of Epstein regimes, because they could not bear to see a government system that they could not infiltrate. Hold a referendum, they said. Well, here's a referendum for you. Millions of Iranians across the country clad in black with their red flags calling for the revenge because of the martyrdom of their leader and standing to the enemies of the Islamic Republic. This is the second referendum Iran has. The first referendum Iran had with the founder of the Islamic Revolution, where more than 98% of Iranians voted to have an Islamic Republic of Iran. They voted yes to the Islamic Republic. And today, after the martyrdom of Iran's leader, Imam Khamenei, of the leader of the Islamic Revolution, Sayyid Ali Khamenei, again, millions of people, millions of Iranians have come to the streets to say yes, to vote yes to the Islamic Republic of Iran, to vote yes to the jurisprudence of an Islamic scholar, to the Islamic Republic that has helped them rise to the occasion. They have been the soldiers of the Islamic Republic. These people, the people you see on the streets, they did not have to show their support in this way, of course, because they have always shown their support. These people have protected the Islamic Republic in 3 military aggressions and 3 imposed wars. They have protected, they have stood by the Islamic Republic during the course of decades of major economic warfare. They have neutralized coup after coup in support of their leader, in support of the Islamic Republic. And today, once again, they have come out to vote yes to the Islamic Republic, to show their love for their leader, and to call for revenge. These people are saying that we are afraid of no one but God. We will bow to no power but God. La ilaha illallah. There is no power but God. And the people who fear no one but God will never submit to any power. The U.S. might be a superpower, but this is a super people. This is a super nation. And they will never submit to the U.S. regime.
Well, on that point, I mean, as you have very clarified there, Mariam Azar, our correspondent, they're joining us from Azadi Square. It is more than evident why the people continue to come to the streets, as our esteemed correspondent did mention. They are there showing again their grief, their devotion, and of course their hope for what the days to come, as they are just simply giving the only part that they can, everything they have, for everything that Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei has done for the Islamic Republic of Iran, and not just for Iran, but for humanity as a whole, for people who are becoming across the world, from every corners of the world. And if they haven't been able to attend here in the capital of Tehran, they're having their own symbolic funerals in their own locations, and making sure that everyone knows what he meant even to them, even so far away. Viewers, let's go ahead and bring it back to our esteemed colleague here joining us, Humaira. You know, Humaira, it's very interesting again, with after 47 years of the Islamic Revolution, and so many people there on the streets, and so many different kinds of flags that we are seeing. the leader, his will directed that his burial be in the holy city of Mashhad, near the shrine of Imam Riza, of course. In regards to our international viewers who don't perhaps know about the theological significance about being buried, or the religious significance of being buried next to Imam Riza, how would you explain it for him? Why is he being buried there?
Yeah, that's a really significant thing which our international viewers need to know. Imam Riza is the 8th Shia Imam, and he's the only Imam who is buried in Iran. And that is very, that the shrine dedicated to Imam Riza where he's buried is hugely respected by Iranians, and not only Iranians, by I think all the Muslims, specifically by Shia Muslims all around the world. Pilgrims throughout the year, they come to visit the holy shrine of Imam Riza, the 8th Shia Imam. And for Iran, if you come to Iran and if you see the roads in Tehran, you would see that there are on normal days also slogans and couplets which are dedicated to Imam Riza, and Iranians say that Iran is the country of Imam Riza, so they regard Iran as a country of Imam Riza, the land of Imam Riza. He is held at such a high position that all the high officials, all the dignitaries, even the leader himself would call himself the Khadim, in Farsi, the Khadim, the servant of Imam Riza. The former president of Iran, Ibrahim Raisi, he was also the servant of Imam Riza, and that is worn as a badge of honor, being the servant of Imam Riza. So Imam Riza holds a central place in Iran. Even during the war, all the calamities that Iran has faced, all the sanctions or all type of wars that Iran has faced, in all these wars we have seen the people of Iran, Iranians, the officials, the leaders,
yes,
saying that it is because of Imam Riza that we have been saved and we are progressing, we are developing, and Imam Riza has played a significant role in protecting us, and we are a country of Imam Riza, and we will always remain a country of Imam Riza. So his being buried in the shrine of Imam Riza is the greatest honor that the Iranian nation can give to him. And also one of the important things is that the leader himself was born in Mashhad, so he was a Mashhadi, and he spent his youth and he spent his childhood in Mashhad. He studied in the seminaries of Mashhad. He had that specific bond with the land of Khorasan, with the Mashhad being its capital. And if we see his speeches also, he would time and again mention Imam Riza, and he would show a specific dedication for Imam Riza. And as we know, Iranians are, religious people. They have a specific type of bond with the imams of the Shia Islam, and whatever the Western media says, that doesn't hold true on ground. The images speak for themselves. The type of sentiment, the type of dedication, the type of religiosity that is shown by Iranians is now evident for everybody around the world. And in that scenario, Mashhad plays a very significant role. Ayatollah Khamenei would say that Mashhad is the spiritual heart of Iran. Mashhad holds a lot of significance for Iran. Tehran is the capital of Iran, but Mashhad is the real spiritual capital of Iran. So now taking his body to Mashhad and he being buried near Imam Riza is one of the most important things, and I think one of the desires that he would have had of his final resting place.
Well, I'd like to thank you, of course, for that, Humaira. Again, and more elaboration for our international viewers on that exact aspect. I'm going to go ahead and back to you, but let's go ahead and bring back in our esteemed guest joining us from Shiraz, geopolitical analyst and commentator, Mr. Hassan Safarnejad. Mr. Safarnejad, let's go ahead and cross over to, in regards to, as Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, one of the perspectives in his messages and speeches always was on to understand who your enemy is. He used to always speak of Zionism as a capitalist network that imported terrorists into Palestine. He used to always warn us that the enemies are using various methods to influence the public opinion. He, of course, spoke of the U.S. as a great Satan in regards to the government, not the people. He used to always, again, give us these messages, give us these speeches in preparation. But on the ground, how has he prepared us now for after his martyrdom on how to confront, how to resist, perhaps what is to come? Because we know the Zionist regime, we know U.S. imperialism, and we know that enough is never enough for them.
Look, when you look at the system that Ayatollah Khamenei has built, you can either explain it to people by mentioning the measures that he took, which unfortunately a lot of Westerners are very quick to dismiss as propaganda of the state and so on and so forth. But what the other route that you can actually take by actually pointing out to the things that have already happened and are very visible to everyone, and then use them as, you know, sort of the evidence for your claims. You look at Iran, you see a country that during the 12-day war had 31 of its generals assassinated, 30 of its scientists assassinated. You had the Iranian leader and a few other high-ranking generals and political officials being also assassinated during the 39-day war. And the United States actually made sure to target the police precincts in order to create and cause ruckus and chaos in the country. And despite all of that, you see that the system is still functioning, you know? So you have to basically ask yourself this question: what kind of system has this man built that no matter what United States does, no matter whether they assassinate their high-ranking officials or they assassinate average security officers that patrol the streets and, you know, fight crimes, fight thieves, you know, murderers, no matter what United States does, this system doesn't collapse, right? So I think that the first achievement that we can mention, I mean, in the scope of the question that you asked, is that he built a system that is very strong, very flexible, and isn't dependent on individuals in any shape or form. This is a very resilient system. Now, again, sometimes the enemy defines us better than we do ourselves. There is this person, he's a director of the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. It's a very hawkish person, Patrick Clausen. He's the famous person who talked about, well, Iran has these submarines, they go down, they come up, you know, one of these days they might go down and never come back up, right? That person. This person, you know, within the past 2 or 3 years, sort of changed his mind. He actually talked about the resilience of Iran and its economy. And he actually mentioned something called Sandoq Tosae Milli, the National Expansion Fund, whose idea came from the Iranian leader himself. He obviously established the resistance economy as well, right? So you have this person who has basically prepared the country in order to fight the economic sanctions, the economic warfare imposed on Iran by United States. He has established a system that is not dependent on the individuals. You actually have this never-ending stream of politicians and individuals that are ready to sacrifice their lives for the cause and for their country, right? And it also has done something very major that is, I would argue that this is his biggest accomplishment, which is to sort of push the Iranian society through the path of resistance and resilience. You know, you look at people, and some of them didn't really understand why a major political leader such as Ayatollah Khamenei would hold these ceremonies, which the poets would gather, and then they would recite their poems, or he would have, these ceremonies with maddahs. These are eulogists who, basically sing the hymns of greatness of Imam Hussein or talk about his sacrifice in Karbala. And we literally saw how that sort of societal movement that he created is now basically unfolding itself right in front of our eyes. And, this has become a testimony that this person, and again, different aspects of, statecraft, has been able to accomplish great things.
Well, Mr. Safanejad, I do want to ask in regards to something our correspondent that was joining us there from Azadi Square had mentioned. She said that one of the thoughts, of course, introduction of a new way to all freedom, was that once he said, and circulated, of course, he said, "My soldiers are in their cradles." And she had pointed behind her and said, "These are the soldiers today. They have grown tall, and of course, they have grown strong." In regards to that, the youth has for so long been, from Western propaganda, perceived that the youth in Iran are the ones who disagree. They're the ones that have problems, whether we're talking about the January 2026, of course, terrorist attacks across Iran. No matter what we're talking about, they always perceive it as a youth. But if we look on the other side, I mean, as my esteemed guest who was joining us here in the studio, Mr. Reza Vidadi, had mentioned, stop looking at Western propaganda. If you want to truly understand Islam, if you want to understand Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei and so much more, go into his speeches, go into his website, go into, of course, what he really meant, because only in that way you're going to understand. I want to ask you, Mr. Safanejad, I mean, in regards to what we're witnessing specifically today on the streets, what is this generation of resistance? What is the engagement of the Iranian youth partaking in what we are seeing today?
Actually, this question ties perfectly to the question that you asked earlier about the knowledge and the understanding of Ayatollah Khamenei of the enemy, right? In 2012, Benjamin Netanyahu went to US Congress, and he actually talked about Iran and Iraq and a few different countries. And he mentioned that you don't need to, wage a war, a physical war against Iran. All you need to do is to take advantage of all these satellite dishes that are on the roof of every Iranian household, basically, and you can propagandize them. You can basically influence them, brainwash them, indoctrinate them by showing a very small portion of the American culture. He famously mentioned Melrose Place, or broadcasting the pictures and the footage of Beverly Hills, which is, extremely problematic, considering that it's a very tiny portion of the American society they're dealing with. Homelessness, these problems have been exacerbated during the recent years, but they have always existed. But in the spirit of not really digressing, was basically arguing for the indoctrination of the Iranian youth. And you also talked about the kind of knowledge and the expertise that he had in understanding Americans and the Zionists and their animosity towards Iran. Well, this is exactly that. He never gave up on the Iranian youth that actually...
Yes, Mr. Ahsan, can you hear me? It seems we have, yes, Mr. Ahsan Safanejad, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead and continue, please.
So basically the problem that, that these people, these individuals, as I mentioned, sometimes betrayed their country unknowingly. They became the so-called tools of the US imperialism, and obviously they were used by the Zionist entity, by Mossad. These things are now officially accepted by both the US regime and the Israeli regime. So, but the point is that Ayatollah Khamenei never gave up on them. And you go to the streets and you talk to people, you talk to the youth, which you brought up, and many of them are there in order to sort of, in a spiritual sense, in a figurative sense, actually ask for forgiveness from Ayatollah Khamenei, because now they understand what he was trying to do. And in a very famous speech, he actually said that even the people who might not be fully behind Iran, he actually loves them greatly. And this goes back to that picture that everyone is now talking about, when it comes to Ayatollah Khamenei having this fatherly figure or position for every Iranian in the country. So I would suggest that, again, as I mentioned in the previous comments that I made in response to your previous question, that this is possibly his greatest achievement, to not only mobilize people, but also sort of bringing back some of the youths that have been and were basically deceived by United States and Israel. So, top leadership there, basically.
Well, exactly. And Mr. Safad Nijad, I mean, for our viewers who are now joining us, of course, no matter where you are in the world, as you are tuning into Press TV, we continue to bring you. I mean, today it depends on when you count. Of course, the foreign dignitaries that came into the capital of Tehran, gave their final farewell. Also here 3 days ago, 2 days ago, the Grand Musalla, the Imam Khamenei Musalla, was opened 5:30 in the morning, according to our own correspondents. The gates flew open. People had crowded themselves in, waiting, some of them camping outside for over 10 hours simply to finally get a place to say farewell to their beloved leader for 2 days. And then today, what we are witnessing are millions upon millions. There is still no estimated number, of course, according to the spokesperson of the committee, who had designated this farewell ceremony, this funeral ceremony, and of course, on Thursday, this burial ceremony, had said that expectations are between 12 and 20 million. While some media, of course, outlets have said that the number has surpassed that, we are still waiting for our official Iranian numbers to go ahead and confirm that for you. So as you can see, a matter of 10 kilometers stretching out in the heart of the, of course, capital of Iran. And it's very interesting enough that where it's being held are at Inqilab Square, at Al-Azadi Square, and the translation for that is actually freedom and resistance and so many others. So the fact that his holy martyr body is being passed through those along with his family is very, very significant for every Iranian who knows specifically about these squares. This is, again, also the same squares where over 125 nights the people of Iran have stayed steadfastness, participating in nightly rallies, not only this, repeating the same calls and chants that we have been hearing over the past few days, calling for revenge until the very last drop of blood, and of course, as expected, repledging their allegiance, their oath to their new leader of the Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Sayyid Mujtaba Khamenei. With that, viewers, let me go ahead and bring it back to our studio, to our Press TV colleague, Humaira. Humaira, it's very interesting again that we're talking about Ayatollah Sayyid Ali. I mean, me, myself, I've only been here, of course, in Iran for nearing 2 years now. I was able to, a few days ago, go to the Grand Musalla. Unfortunately, it was my first and last time in regards to seeing our beloved leader. And it's very interesting enough because it's not just a personal situation. Even for people in Iran, we're seeing them on the streets. They're saying, despite what we had always thought, and even though we were here in the country, that yes, this is the time, and now we regret not going, whether they were with or against, of course, his policies and the whole situation. It's very interesting again because they're saying we are participating in these funerals because now we know what we have lost. Your take on that, please.
Yeah, you're absolutely right in that there were people, as our analyst already mentioned, about the propaganda that was unleashed by the West, specifically by America, by Israel, the amount of money they were pumping in to spread this propaganda through the satellite channels, through the social media. We can go into length to discuss about how social media had been indoctrinating the people, indoctrinating the youth in the Iranian society. But despite that, the leader of the Islamic Revolution, the martyr leader of the Islamic Revolution, played a great role, played a significant role in reviving that Islamic culture and also instilling that spirit of revolution, in the spirit of sacrifice amongst the Iranian people. The greatest example of how he succeeded in doing that, despite the propaganda started by America, by Israel, with using trillions of dollars, are these pictures. When you see these pictures, you can not but you can be happily surprised and say that he was successful. In doing what he wanted to do, despite whatever America tried during all these 47 years, whatever the other Western capitals tried during all these years, the sanctions, breaking the economic bone back backbone of the Iranian people, trying whatever they could. You know, if we talk about the satellite TV channel, then we talk about the propaganda, then we talk about the sanctions, then we talk about the assassinations, then we talk about the cyber attacks. Whatever was in their hands, they tried it against the Islamic Republic of Iran. All sorts of warfare was used against the Islamic Republic of Iran. We can talk about it for hours and hours. But despite all sort of warfare, the leader of the Islamic Revolution was successful in transferring that spirit of Islam, the spirit of resistance, which we are seeing now in the form of these pictures. Millions of people, participating in his funeral. There were people, as you already mentioned, there were people who had fallen into the hands of these propagandists because they were also reeling under sanctions and lots of warfare mechanisms that America had started 47 years ago, and it still continues against the Islamic Republic of Iran. So yes, they did fall in the hands of these propagandists. But now, I think after the martyrdom of the leader of the Islamic Revolution, if there were people who were not understanding the significance of his message, now they have come to the conclusion that they have lost such a great person. They have lost the father of their nation, the person who built their nation. And even the 40-day war opened the eyes of people all over the world and also in Iran, because they saw a country which has been sanctioned for 47 years was able to defend itself in a way that America and its ally Israel had to surrender, and they had to ask for a ceasefire.
Humaira, I don't mean to cut you off. We are going to continue on that. We are going to go ahead and cross over to our correspondent joining us there from Azadi Square, Maureen Amini. Maureen, as always, thank you very much. Maureen, we're hearing estimates of 10 to 12 hours for this procession. How is the crowd going? What are the chants? And of course, what is the feelings and atmosphere in the heart of this historic moment?
Yes, good afternoon. I am talking to you from Tehran's Azadi Square, where the coffins of the martyred leader of the revolution, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, and his family members was taken here moments ago, and now is going around the city. All around Tehran, I can tell you for a fact, is packed with people, jam-packed with people. They have taken to the streets from all around Iran also. In a large funeral procession for our martyred leader Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei. Millions of people are in the streets in Tehran. People have taken their houses to mukebs, basically like stalls, providing food, water and other services to people. The degree of unity and solidarity over here is quite spectacular. It's amazing scenes that we have been witnessing. Earlier this morning, I reported from Tehran's Imam Hussein Square at around 9 in the morning, and then it took me 3 hours to make my way to Azadi Square. I had to go all around the city using a motorbike and then walk for a certain distance to get myself here. It took me like 3-4 hours to get here. When I was here, it was noon. I was hearing the azan for the noon prayer. Absolutely amazing. Ordinary people from all walks of life are here, not just international visitors. Men and women, young and old, from all kinds of political backgrounds and opinions and ideologies are here. The martyrdom of Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei has really brought people together, and you can see behind me, people are. The weather is extremely hot. Despite that, they are here. They're not leaving the streets. Eulogies are being performed. One thing I have to say is that the eulogies that are being performed are for Imam Hussein, and people here definitely believe that Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei was a true follower of Imam Hussein. And I wonder if any leader around the world would have such a massive funeral, one of the biggest funeral processions in human history. I wonder if these scenes could be seen anywhere in the world. So popular, so loved by the people, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei. And one thing that also is important to mention is that besides mourning for their leader, their martyred leader, people are here to declare their support for the new leader of the revolution, Ayatollah Sayyid Mujtaba Khamenei, say that they will support their leader until the last drop of their blood, that the path of Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, which was started by Imam Khomeini and people in 1979 and then continued all the way to the moment that we are speaking, to the time of Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei and his martyrdom. And now this path will continue, and this is what people are out here to say here to say that they might have lost a unique leader, indeed very unique. He was a very holistic character, a scientific figure, a religious, a pious figure, a political master. There are very many different dimensions of his character. Well, perhaps that's a story to talk about in another opportunity, because there is not enough time to talk about his scientific character. But for the most part, his holistic character indicates one thing, that this is what also people are saying, that the path of Ayatollah Khamenei, the values that Ayatollah Khamenei stood for, and the values that he lost his life for, are the values that began from the time of from Adam all the way to the 12 Imams, to the Prophet Muhammad and 12 Imams, and was carried and was sparked by Imam Khomeini in 1979, basically, and the people and revolution happened, and then it was handed to Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, and with his martyrdom, he handed this whole thing to the people. And people are here to say that for many years, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei carried the weight of this nation on his shoulders, not just this nation, all the freedom lovers around the world. And now it is these people that are carrying his body on their shoulder to send the world a message, to say that the path will continue. This is just the beginning of the Islamic civilization. Islam has never had such a strong establishment, has never been so able to stand for itself and for its values. But thanks to the Islamic revolution, thanks to Imam Khomeini and Ayatollah Khamenei, and this nation that you see behind me from all walks of life, Islam has now turned into a power in all dimensions. It has now been revived. It has found its real essence. Many have been trying to separate politics from religion, but the Islamic revolution of Iran, Imam Khomeini, Ayatollah Khamenei, brought Islam to its real sense, that politics and other dimensions of life, social dimensions of life, cannot be separated from religion. And this is, I can tell you for a fact, my friend, that is just the beginning of the Islamic civilization, and there is more to come indeed.
Well, on that point, as always, I'd like to thank you very much there for our correspondent Marina Amini joining us there from Azadi Square, participating and showing for all of our viewers the situation on the ground, these live images, these historical images coming to you across from the heart of the capital of Tehran, where a radius, of course, around 10 kilometers has been put. But again, what we have been seeing from the helicopter and the overside view, that the route has been perhaps even extended in regards to the large amount of people, millions upon millions. Again, we have no estimate number. We're going to go ahead and bring you those updates as we do receive them. According to the spokesperson of the committee organizing the farewell ceremony and burial ceremony, of course, the estimates are between 12 and 20 million. Some media outlets have perceived that they are even more than that, but we're going to wait, of course, for the official numbers. Well, with that, viewers, let's go ahead and bring back in Mr. Safarnejad. They're joining us from Shiraz. As always, thank you very much for your patience, sir. In regards to what our correspondent Maureen was mentioning about what today will be remembered for and after today, it's very interesting again, because Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei had always said that history is turning a page. I guess earlier yesterday was saying that his martyrdom, that Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei's martyrdom himself had turned that page. What do you think? I mean, what are we to expect? Because we know that we're going to be reporting on this very intense and very day-to-day and hour-to-hour event up until he is buried. What can we expect to after the day of his burial? And in your opinion, has he turned the page, or are we still writing on the same page of history?
Look, there are sometimes it's very difficult to explain something without addressing the elephant in the room, and at the same time not really sounding as a person who thinks of himself as a holier than thou type of individual. But the truth is that it's very difficult for people to understand the concept of martyrdom and its importance within the overall structure of the resistance. Uh, and this is the elephant that I talked about. This is when you see people trying to misrepresent these famous statements by the Palestinians when they say, "We love death more than you like living," right? And they mischaracterize it, they misrepresent it as being suicidal. No, that's not the case. And I think that Ayatollah Khamenei is the prime example of that. Look at this man. He was 87 years old, and it becomes questionable how much longer would this individual live, you know? But he chose to remain steadfast and not betray his principles. And he was martyred when he actually lived a full life. Only 0.1% of Iranian men get to live, between the ages of 85 and 89, right? So he lived a full life. He helped his country in every shape or form that he could. And by the sacrifice that he made, I call this the Khamenei gambit, because he knew what was going to happen to him. He refused to go to the bunker. And in doing so, he created this movement. You hear about people demonstrating each and every single night for the past 120 something days. I've actually lost count. It's an indication of how long these demonstrations have been going on for now, right? So he made this gambit, this a move in a chess, the opening move in the chess called gambit, right? He made this gambit, and by doing so, he protected his country, and he gave a new life to the resistance itself. Imam Khomeini used to talk about irrigation of this sort of figurative tree of resistance, by the blood of the martyrs, right? When you see them, the blood of martyrs is so strong and it's so potent that it washes away all these billions and billions of dollars of propaganda that has been disseminated against Iran and the axis of resistance. And it's very questionable if Iran could, through conventional means, broadcasting, TV programs. Not to undermine what you guys are doing. I'm a big fan of you guys, but it's very questionable if Press TV could achieve what the blood of Martyr Khamenei was able to achieve, right? And again, this gives itself, sort of a kind of an additional kick when it comes to the fight against the imperialism, because if we are being honest, Iran, despite its military prowess, despite its magnificent and marvelous ballistic missiles, drones that are being replicated by different countries in the first world, the NATO countries, Iran is still the overwhelming underdog in this fight between Iran and not just United States, NATO. So how are we overcoming this great challenge? By doing two things: being smart in our strategy, and the second thing is by having this culture of resistance, resilience, steadfastness that enables us to just endure the crimes, the atrocities that they commit against us, and never ponder upon surrendering or giving up, the cause or championing for the Palestinian rights. This is, again, as I mentioned,
Yes.
one of the greatest achievements of Ayatollah Khamenei.
Well, on that point, as always, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us there from Shiraz, geopolitical analyst and commentator, Mr. Ahsan Safarnejad. A pleasure as always, sir. Well, viewers, if you are now joining us here at Press TV, we continue to bring you the live images, of course, at the heart of the capital of Tehran, where funeral ceremonies have started off and commenced in the capital. They will be continuing tomorrow in the holy city of Qom. On Wednesday, of course, they will be going over to our neighborly country, of course, Iraq, in the holy cities of Najaf and Karbala, where the holy shrines of Imam Ali and, of course, Imam Hussein and his brother Abu Fadl al-Abbas are located. The holy body of our martyred leader will be there, welcomed again by millions of his beloved, of his believers and of his followers, of course, Muslims, non-Muslims, whether you're Iranian, whether you're Iraqi, whether you're coming from the furthest corners of the earth and the world. A lot of people are joining in these ceremonies, and if they are unable to, of course, we have continued to bring you on our social media, on Telegram and so many other pages, those symbolic funerals that are taking place, whether in Africa, in Latin America, in Europe, and so many other locations across the world. Well, on that point, viewers, let's go ahead and welcome in. Joining me here in the studio is a professor at the University of Tehran, Professor Ahsan Sharif. Professor, as always, thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you very much for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor, let's go ahead and start off. I mean, these remarkable numbers, as our previous guest, Mr. Safarnejad, had mentioned, they should come to no surprise or no shock for all those who knew the impact of martyr leader Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, the impact he had on so many people. Again, as we have mentioned, Iranian, non-Iranian, Muslim, non-Muslims. And let's go ahead and start off initially in reaction to what you are seeing in front of you on the screen and how you would perceive it to the world.
Thank you very much for having me. First, I would have to say commemoration as well as congratulations. So in Iranian culture, when we have somebody who passed away, we say commemoration, but when we have someone who's martyred, we say commemoration and congratulation. And why to congratulate, some might ask. You can see in your screen, millions and millions of people have attended the funeral today and the farewell the previous 2 days. And more numbers are going to come, and I'm sure the Iraqi nation in 2 days' time, they're going to show their full power. And this is the power of people, to be honest with you. So I think one of the biggest signs and demonstration of this funeral is that this is the power of people. And they are, by attending this funeral, usually funeral is to say farewell, but this, the nature of this procession, and I would not even say funeral, is to say it's going to be a new beginning. And this new beginning is going to be very, very dangerous. As you can see in your screens, many are carrying the red flag. The red flag symbolizes in Iranian culture and in Iraqi culture, it resemblance that we are going to stand up to avenge. The biggest sort of person that we want to avenge is the blood of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, who's the grandson of the Holy Prophet, and who was sort of oppressed by the tyrant of the time, and he was killed alongside his family. So I don't want to compare, but exactly same scenario has been occurred to a much smaller degree to Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei and his family. And this is because, as his surname is Husseini, he's putting his steps in the footsteps of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And so you can see this red flag. This red flag does not mean farewell. This red flag means it's going to be, we need to rise. We need to have this uprising, and it's going to, more is going to come. So America and Israel, they did this stupid act, thinking that Iran's government is going to topple. Well, you have awakened not just Iranians, many throughout the world, and more are going to come. So this war, however you've received the beating and smacks from Iran's military and Iran's power and the resistance front, more is going to come. And you can see millions of people holding this red flag in Tehran, which I don't know how many degrees, it feels like plus 40 degrees, but I don't know how many Celsius degrees is there. People are there with their families, with their infants. And you can see the millions and millions, to the extent, I don't know if this has pointed out in your sort of press coverage today, that the bodies of the martyrs, including the leader and his family, and the 14-month-old granddaughter of Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei, was supposed to commence this funeral from Damovan Street, which is far east of Tehran, central Tehran, towards west of Tehran, Azadi Square. But because they saw this millions of people attended, so they started the procession of the bodies of these individuals and these martyrs from nearly 90% of the path, from Behboudi Street crossing with Azadi Street, which is, as I said, it's around 90% of this path has been gone. So people could not, many could not follow the procession truck. And that is because millions are there, and you can see the truck is actually carrying the bodies of these martyrs, and people still walking, and there's it's literally loads of individuals in Ferdowsi Square, which is sort of east of Tehran still. So this means people still going through this procession. And again, as you mentioned, tomorrow's same thing is going to be happening in city of Qom. And the day after tomorrow in the holy cities of Najaf and Karbala, which I'm sure if it allowed, even all Iranians wanted to have this funeral in all of their main cities, not just Tehran, Qom, and Mashhad. So this is a sign that it shows that a new beginning is going to rise. And as what Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei mentioned nearly 5 years ago, he said, we are going to see the transition of power from the West towards where it used to be, and that's East, and we can see this. East does not necessarily mean Iran for itself. It means Iran, it means Iraq, it means Lebanon, it means the resistance front, including even those countries who are, we can see the signs that they're joining, and we saw that they attended the sort of farewell ceremony by international delegates, such as Saudi Arabia or other countries. So world is going to change, and I'm sure with the power of the blood of Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei, things are going to come ahead of us.
Well, exactly, Professor. I'm glad that you actually brought it up, specifically for all those who are unable to attend, of course, wanting to attend, the burning hearts of all of those who loved and continue to love Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei. And it's very interesting because perhaps when from outside they hear everything that you're saying, whether we're talking about the high temperatures, whether we're talking about the long distances, whether we're talking about families, the crowds, people are saying, how are they still doing this? And for example, not even talking about fatigue, not even talking about how tired they are. It's very interesting because, again, it all goes back to over 1400 years ago, to when Imam Hussein, the third Shi'avi Imam, had been surrounded by Yazid's army, by himself, and called out, who will come to my aid? And no one was there. It is as if this same scenery is being repeated of Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, and these people are coming despite the tiredness, with every step knowing why they're going there. Your take on that, please, sir.
Exactly what you say is absolutely true. And I was saying, on top of that, I was just thinking about it while trying to get the metro, because right now central Tehran is completely blocked. You cannot even get a taxi or anything. You need to walk long distances or catch a metro. And I was thinking that Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei could not attend any Arba'in procession, but because he endorsed it, because he put his steps in the footsteps of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Imam Hussein alayhi salam granted him a mini Arba'in inside Tehran, and he brought Arba'in to Tehran. So when you go to Arba'in, each year, mashallah, you can see more millions of people are attending the procession in Arba'in in Karbala, and the beautiful, amazing Iraqi people are hosting this great international procession. 20-something, 30 million even sort of unofficial numbers are saying that people attend. Right now we can see similar vibes happening in Tehran during the farewell, during this funeral procession, and I'm sure tomorrow in the city of Qom. I predicted this funeral, actually I had an interview last week, and I predicted exactly, and what I predicted, it's literally exactly occurred, even higher to my expectation. And my expectation was that they would carry the bodies from the far east of Tehran towards far west of Tehran, but they didn't. They literally brought the trucks to the 90% of the path. So the truck is actually moving only 10% of the path. And otherwise, if they'd done it, the truck would, my estimation would, was that it would not reach the destination until midnight. And they didn't do it because they didn't want to put a burden onto the people who are attending this funeral because of the heat, and large numbers of people who are actually attending this procession. And in particular, many of these individuals, even though they're tired, even though they attended farewell, I was receiving this from them when I was talking to them, that they were saying, we are going to city of Qom, which is around 2 hours drive from Tehran, if there's no traffic, but I'm sure there's going to be loads of traffic tonight. So this shows that the Imam Hussein alayhi salam movement, that demonstrates, if even all of the world powers is against you, you have to stand on the side of what God has said, and you would be victorious. We can see, as mentioned by many, that blood is going to overcome the power and missiles and sword. We can see this exactly. Yes, of course, America, which calls himself superpower, which we believe the only superpower is God, he's super criminal, and you can see my main proof for that is literally, you can see that Donald Trump is a pedophile, Epstein class. So we are fighting with them, and he thought that he was by assassinating Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei and initiating this war alongside his bulldog Zionist regime, they can reach this victory. But we are sons of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. We are sons of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. We are sons of the Holy Prophet. And we are demonstrating that the real power is the power of God subhanahu wa ta'ala. And people are coming to this realization. Other nations are realizing America is just a big bully and is not as powerful as what he was saying. Because Iranians being under sanction for 47 years and being under the war, look at this process, you can see on your screens, this organized funeral in this multi-million numbers never happened throughout the world. And with all, at this sort of temperature as well. So this shows the power of working on the literally path of God, and literally God is the superpower. And this is what Iran is trying to demonstrate, that the only superpower that we kneel to and bow down to is God and no one else.
Well, exactly. I mean, as you did mention, of course, and our viewers continue to see, and as we were told last week, of course, the spokesperson of the committee who has organized, of course, these ceremonies, they are being held under, quote, the title, the leader of the truth seekers of our time. And of course, the slogan, we must rise, along with, of course, that logo of the clenched fist that we have been speaking about, its significance and importance, of course, in regards, again, for our viewers who are now seeing these live images, again, for you to better understand the cloths that are being thrown into the participants. They're participating. They are thrown by the people. They are taken by those, of course, soldiers or other people who are participating, and they wipe them on the coffin of the beloved martyr, of course, as a blessing, and then they go ahead and throw it back to those who had given it. So it's basically a blessing from the martyr leader that you can go ahead and take back with you. And it's seen, of course, with very significantly in Islam, a lot of places at shrines and martyr leaders. I mean, Professor, as you did mention, it's very interesting again, and it's known basically on our side. Unfortunately, it's propaganda from the West that still have not made it clear, whether it's the martyrdom of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, Sayyid Hashim Safiyuddin, of Yahya Sanwar, Qasim Soleimani, of course Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis, and so many other people. Of course, they still don't realize. Ismail Hani, of course, thank you very much. I mean, the list goes on, and still the same situation repeats, the same exact thing that you said. We've heard it from all of these leaders, that even if we are killed, this is simply the mortal life, and you have indeed just elevated us into immortality. And this is more than expected for those people who are now seeing it on the screens. This is proof more than ever. I do want to ask you in regards to something very important. I mean, some people, of course, say that Ayatollah Sayyid Ali had expected to be martyred. Some people say, of course, that he was already expecting it, as we did mention. The weight of succession, and this goes all the way back to that very emotional image when Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei had found out that he was selected as a new leader of the Islamic Revolution after Imam Khomeini, something that was never expected. When Imam Khomeini passed away, everyone was saying who is able to carry on this very large responsibility. But when he was selected, that emotion that we know in that video, I mean, if you can just elaborate on this, the moment that he found out, what we witnessed in this moment, and how he's carried it all the way through until his martyrdom.
Very interesting point I mentioned, because from that, if you can see, if you look at the documentaries and the actual video footage of that meeting in the council, as soon as he was trying to protest that he doesn't want to be selected as the leader. Why? Because in true Islam, we should not be power greedy. We should not be seeking the power. But once the power was given to you as a responsibility, and he mentioned this, and he to the son of late Imam Khomeini, that he thought of the verse in Holy Quran that خُذْهَا بِقُوَّةٍ, that you need to hold this, and literally Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God told Prophet Moses that you need to hold this prophethood, you need to hold this responsibility with full force. And this is what he'd done in this 30-something years. And he actually, what I can see, I can see it as Imam Khomeini established this movement in this modern day. And Imam Khomeini actually progressed it and excelled it. And right now, this revolution is much, much more powerful. And I can remember first time I came in your platform within the first, I think, week of the war. I mentioned that literally that your correspondent was actually asking me what do you think of Imam Sayyid Mujtaba and how he will do. I said he will do much more better. And one reason is you can see the amount of support that right now you can see for Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei, same support, times it by even 2, I would say, because more people are going to come and support him, Imam Sayyid Mujtaba Khamenei. And one, I'm not saying this is a fact for what I'm saying, but look at the number of members of within the social media pages of Imam Sayyid Mujtaba Khamenei is more than his beloved dad. And this does not show that people are forgetting Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei. No, people are showing, this shows that people that were not in the footsteps or in the party or in the group of Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei, now they realize that he was literally on the right side of history. They have changed, and they are, in order to compensate from the previous sort of behaviors and acts. And I've spoke to many Iranians that if you look at them on their appearance, they totally look different to a religious individual or politically someone who is with the government but supports the government and Islamic Republic. But many have changed, and part of that change, they're saying that we are going to show full obedience to the new leader Imam Sayyid Mujtaba Khamenei. And because we know, we've seen what the enemy, American Zionist regime, has done to us, so we are going to support and give our 100% effort to Imam Sayyid Mujtaba Khamenei.
And Professor, I mean, in regards, of course, to, I mean, the list of Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei's speeches and messages, guidances, I mean, again, he was called the father by Iranians, can go on. I do want to ask you in regards, he always said that the Iranian nation firmly opposes any imposed war and any imposed peace. I mean, how does the resistance to imposed peace mean for Iran? Because people said, what do we mean by imposed peace? We understand imposed war, but on this specific point, what did he mean?
Imposed peace means, like, for instance, America starts the war, and by the usual thing that it does every single 1 year or 2 years, it starts a war within another country. And their tactics is, in their initial steps, they use full force, and they're trying to put a country into its knees. And then they will say, you know what, now let's have truce. And within the truce and within the deals, they are going to dominate all the terms that they want for their own interest. And so this means imposed peace. And many countries give into this. One, I would say, we can see in the case of Syria. So in the current, literally the most recent one, it would be Syria, or I would even say after Syria is Cuba. Venezuela. So this means imposed peace by putting big force, and then after a few years, those countries realize this peace deal is not in their sort of interest, is in the interest of America. And so they are feeling sort of oppressed, they're feeling being dominated by America. Whereas in this scenario, it was actually vice versa. So America used more than 60 countries to come and mediate, so that Iran would say, okay, let's have a ceasefire. Let's have a memorandum of understanding, MOU, to have a ceasefire. And just tell us what are your terms. Iranian mentioned the terms which anyone would realize, if America give in to these terms, it's a big loss for America. And Trump says yes to those terms. Then Iranian officials, I'm talking about nearly 60 days back. And then Iranian officials said, okay, if that's the case, Trump needs to tweet this. He tweeted this. So look at this. Iran, a country which is under sanction, which has been under 8-year imposed war with the support of America and with the hands of Saddam forces. Now Iran is putting its terms, and America is saying yes to this. So this is the power of God. This is the power. We're not saying we did this. When we say Allahu Akbar, means God is the greatest, means God is most powerful, more powerful than nuclear bombs or any naval ships that America has in the region. And we can see them. Literally, they run away from Persian Gulf and Oman Sea. So we're there. So, and hiding inside 5-star hotels in UAE and Bahrain and Kuwait, is this a superpower? No. Superpower you can see in your screens. This large nation of Iran and the resistance front, which is a new, as I said, it's a new beginning, and you can see it on your screens right now. This new beginning, this is the real power. And you know what? This power is not greedy like America, trying to occupy other countries and get their wealth and interest. No, this is not the case with Iran. Iran, even when they helped the Lebanese youth to establish Hezbollah, they did not went and fight on their behalf. They trained them so that right now you can see Hezbollah is not just a military wing. Hezbollah has university. Hezbollah has the best hospital inside Lebanon, where Christians, Muslims, non-Muslims, everyone go to that sort of hospital. So this is the way, true Islam. This is a godly way to have power, is to actually share it with other nations, so everyone becomes sovereign. Everyone becomes literally looks for their own interests, and that's the part of looking for their interests is to share sort of your goals and share your wealth with others and help each other. And this is exactly what's happening. For that main reason is why during this 40-something years of revolution, Iran's been supporting Palestinians, because they're being oppressed, so we need to help them out. And the only nation which is actually supporting Palestine in all sort of terms, it's not just giving them food, it's not just giving them money so they build their houses, so after a few years Israel will be bombing them. We are trying to make Palestinians independent and sovereign so that they can defend themselves from the Zionist regime, and we saw this actually happened in 7th of October.
Well, exactly, Professor Sharif, you bring up so many important parts in regards to Palestine. Of course, it's not simply giving money, it's not giving food, it's not anything or condemning and saying you need to stop. It's literally taking action on the ground and freeing Palestine from all of the atrocities it is continuing to go through. Let's remind our viewers again, so-called Board of Peace by Donald Trump, and of course all those who participated in another just simply propaganda in regards to the situation on the ground. Palestinians are still being genocided. There's still starvation, and the situation is still the same. So do not forget the people of Palestine. In regards to also what you mentioned on Lebanon, I mean, as someone, of course, partly as Lebanese, in regards, for example, one of the great examples that you did mention, that it is everyone together, not just to believe that it's only Shia Muslims that support the resistance group there, Hezbollah, on the, of course, the occasion of the pager terrorist attack, where so many people were injured, their eyes, their kidneys. I was there in the middle of in the capital of Beirut, a horrific scene. And the surprise is what I was reporting after is that Christians, people from all many different, from across the country and of course different religions, were willing to donate their eyes, their corneas, parts of their body, just simply to make sure that these fighters were well helped. Professor Sharif, I do want to ask you something.
Can I add something to what you mentioned?
Ahead.
And one reason this is the case, as you mentioned, beautiful Christian people of Lebanon actually were willing to donate, and I saw donating blood and everything, is because when they saw the ISIS, which was a product of US regime and the Zionist entity, and they were actually killing Christians and looting churches in Iraq and Syria. It was the Hezbollah fighters from Lebanon and Iraqi resistance fighters from Iraq that were actually liberating those cities and restoring those churches as well. Not insulting them, not like these Zionist soldiers that you saw. They went in South Lebanon, demolishing churches and making fun of Prophet Jesus Christ. And this is the case. So this is my message to American people. You are claiming to be a Christian government, so how come a Christian nation? So how come you are supporting a government which is supporting Zionist regime to insult Prophet Jesus? And even your president insulted Prophet Jesus. And for that reason, on the Iranian missiles that were fired to Israel, you saw that they wrote, this missile is for the passions of Christ. This missile is for all those, is to take revenge for all those insults that were given to Lady Mary. So this shows this multi-faith front that has formed, and it's the resistance front. I'm not saying Islamic front, it's actually a resistance front, because within this resistance front we have Christians, we have even Jews. So the oldest synagogue in Tehran was bombed by the Zionist regime, which they claim that they are the Jewish state. And how come you bomb the oldest synagogue in Tehran just because they were supporting Palestine? So this, as I said, it's a new beginning, and there's more going to come for this. Super bullies and tyrannical powers, you need to be careful. And look at those red flags. Look at the signs: kill Trump, kill Netanyahu. And definitely this will happen. But people would not be, there's sort of, the thirst for vengeance will not be quenched. When I was asking them, what is the revenge for Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei, they said, literally, there should be no country of Zionist regime, because on the pretext of Zionist regime in the region, America is looting all this oil and wealth and literally bringing corruption and separation between all these Muslim Arabic countries. And it's going to come soon.
Yes. Well, Professor, on that point, to better get what's going on the ground, let's go ahead and cross over to Azadi Square, where our correspondent Mariam Azad is joining us there. Mariam, as always, thank you very much. In regards to the heart of this historic, of course, event, what updates you have for us since we last spoke?
So today is Monday, July 6, 2026. It's past 1:30 p.m. Temperatures are about 95 degrees. And as you see people behind me, they continue to walk, they continue to rally. Today, of course, millions of people across the Islamic Republic of Iran have come out to the streets to bid farewell to the leader of the Islamic Revolution, the man who gave them the power to deter their biggest enemies, the biggest hegemonic powers of the world. So they're here to bid farewell, but they're also here to give a message. What we see in various banners, and when we talk to people over and over, they say, we want revenge. And they're saying, you know, we tried talking to the US regime. They say we're a great civilization, a people with a very rich literature. But to criminals, to child killers who understand nothing but the language of force, the only reason we negotiate with these people is with our missiles. The only way, the only way we negotiate with these people is through our clenched fists, like the clenched fist of our leader, because we know, of course, as the leader had said, this is a sign of resistance. And also what we know is when he was martyred, when they found his body in his home office, as he was not hiding, he was at his home office with family members who were martyred alongside with him, his fist was clenched as a sign of resistance. So the people out on the streets are saying that, you know, we won the battle, and therefore the US had to negotiate with us. They had to come to the negotiation table with our terms, but they have been violating our terms, and we have absolutely no problem with that, because these people are saying that the way we negotiate is with our missiles. Our enemies don't understand literature. They don't understand the language of civilization. They're barbaric. And so the only way to deal with those barbaric Epstein regimes is through the language of force, is through walking the streets, saying down with USA, down with Israel, and showing that we have no fear of anyone but the one and only God. And so they know not to mess with us. So they know not to commit aggressions against us. And I actually saw some signs. One of the very interesting signs was saying that we need to make atomic bombs in order to deter the US regime, in order to protect the lives of our leader, Imam Khamenei, because they saw how the US dared to martyr the leader of the Islamic Revolution, and they don't want the same thing happening again. Of course, the leader of the Islamic Revolution had said time and again that our missiles are our deterrence power. But this is where the US has taken us, that the people are saying, we want the ultimate deterrence there is, whatever weapon it might be, we must develop it. And of course, we know that the leader of the Islamic Revolution was the reason that in this third imposed war, just as in the second imposed war, Iranians did not have to fight with empty hands. Iranians did not have to suffer the faith of their Palestinian brothers and sisters, but they could also speak up for them. They did not have to suffer the fate of their Lebanese brothers and sisters, but they could stand up for them and use their MOU to negotiate their freedom, their independence on their behalf. And it was because of all the power that the leader of the Islamic Revolution has given these people. And this is what they're saying as we talk to people, interview after interview. They're saying he made us powerful. He gave us power. We were a nation oppressed on the Western puppet regimes. And today we have deterrence power. Today we make the decision. Today we say no, and today we talk back, not with our words, because our criminal enemies do not understand words. We talk with our missiles and with our clenched fists, saying down with USA and down with the Israeli regime.
Well, Mariam, I'd like to thank you as always that the voices are rising high above the heart of the capital, where millions upon millions have gathered there. Everyone, our correspondent Mariam Zasher joining us there from Azadi Square, of course, during just one of the points during this over a 10-kilometer stretch in the heart of the capital. As you can see here again, the committee has, of course, and of course the capital of Tehran has made sure that all of the pilgrims, all the participants are well supplied, whether we're talking about in regards to the extreme heat, in regards to any type of medical, in regards to anything. Everyone is on high alert and standby as the people are still flooding in. I mean, just a reminder for our viewers, this funeral ceremony taking place in the capital of Tehran started around 6 a.m. Tehran time. It is currently 1:42, almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and people are still ongoing. According to the committee, of course, it is expected to take place between 10 and 12 hours of this, but we're going to go ahead and see what happens there. Well, viewers, with that, let's go ahead and welcome in, joining us from Sydney, our new guest, Mr. Tim Anderson, academic and political analyst. A pleasure as always, Mr. Anderson, and thank you very much for joining us during this historic week. Mr. Anderson, let's go ahead and start off. I mean, in regards, this has been labeled, this has been titled as a historical farewell ceremony of martyred leader Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei. Many people there participating and who have been participating over the last few days is saying that this is actually much more, that this is only the beginning of a new stage for the Islamic Revolution. Your take on what we are witnessing and on that part, please, sir.
Well, the turnout is very impressive. It's being seen across the world, of course, and including the presence of many international guests. So I think this is really another step in the demonstration that Iran has made already by successfully defending itself, and that made a huge impression on the world. I think that still there are some perhaps doubts about Iran's capacity, but certainly there's a growing admiration of that Iran is one of the few countries in the world that's been able to stand up to this big bully and the monsters of the Israeli regime, and that's very important. It's having a very deep impact now, because before that, of course, the propaganda in Western countries, or let's say the Anglo-American countries, has been very powerful against Iran, and Iran's actions have been, rather than words, have been what has been challenging that recently, certainly in the Anglo-American, or in the Anglosphere, let's say.
And Mr. Anderson, I mean, in regards, of course, we have been talking over the last few days during this ongoing rolling coverage, of course, to all of our esteemed colleagues and guests, whether here in the studio or around the world, who have been joining us. It's very interesting enough that the speeches, the messages, the guidance of Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei will remain on, and there's so many, they're endless, and they need definitely much more time than what we do have. But I do want to ask, in regards to what has been highlighted, that it's not just Muslims, it's not just Iranians, it is almost every religion, it is foreigners, they are foreign diplomats and people from the furthest corners of the earth who have been attending, whether here in the capital of Tehran or are preparing to attend in Qom, in Mashhad, in neighboring cities of Iraq, Karbala and Najaf, of course. In regards to all of this, I mean, what do you think, what is it, perhaps some of the guiding points or messages that had these kind of people, perhaps freedom seekers, truth seekers, actually attach themselves to who Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei was and will continue to be?
I think that's right. There's a very powerful message coming from the life and the death of Sayyid Ali Khamenei, and what he has managed to construct with the Iranian people in the last several decades, really. It's a spiritual message which is not missed by many, as you say, from other religions, but also those who are social humanists like myself who see the spiritual message there. And I saw it encapsulated very well in one post recently that said that the people who are remembered in history are not those who held office or held power in some way. They were those that inspired humanity with a message beyond just themselves. You know, we see most of the Western leaders trying to promote themselves, thinking of themselves. There's a huge spiritual and moral vacuum coming out of the Western world generally at the moment. And what is seen in Iran's actions and its messages and the examples of the lives of the great heroes that have been inspired by the Islamic Revolution in Iran, I'm including people like Qasem Soleimani and Hassan Nasrallah, as well as Sayyid Ali Khamenei. These messages are reaching at a spiritual level people across cultures. It is something that does cross cultures.
And Mr. Anderson, I mean, in regards to what we are witnessing again, it's very interesting enough that the uniqueness of his guidance, his leadership during crisis, I mean, it's not just the 40-day war, of course, where he was martyred, where his guidance continued, but it was a 12-day war. It was a January 2026 terrorist attacks internally. There was so much that happened over the past course of the decades during Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei's, of course, leadership. And despite everything, despite the wars, despite the sanctions, despite internal and external pressure in every which way, under his legacy, under his leadership, under his guidance, and even when he was threatened, he made sure to make sure that his people knew how much that they are loved, specifically from him. And it's very important that now what we're witnessing on the streets, I mean, the statements that people are making, that we never knew what we had until we lost him. Your take on that, please, sir.
I think from my observations when I was in Iran in March, in those first few weeks after the US and the Israelis began their war of aggression, it was very clear that people turning out in the streets had all sorts of different views about the government and about the revolution. But there was a great sea change going on, really, in defending their country and also in recognizing the role of Sayyid Ali in the construction of this incredible nation in recent decades. I mean, it's a terrible vacuum, it's a terrible gap that's been left to us, and there's a lot of mourning going on, but at the same time, I think in many ways we've had the benefit of several decades of his presence and his example, and the example of his life and the example of his death and the example of all of those that he mentored in his time there, you know. So this is something, an ongoing process, as you say. The funeral itself, the remembrance of Sayyid Ali Khamenei is part of the revolution that's extending what was achieved in the last few decades. And I think because of the doctrine of strategic patience, which was Iran biding its time and building its strength so that it could face its greatest physical threat, its greatest physical challenge, was also something that people are starting to appreciate now. This is why Sayyid Ali people thought Iran was weak at one stage with this restraint. It went on for so long. The Israelis were able to get away with so much for so long. But then we saw the response. We saw the answer after February the 28th. Iran was biding its time, having built up its strength, waiting for this challenge. And then, of course, the links between the physical capacity of the nation and the resilience of the nation and the support of the people for the government and for the military came out in recent times. So really, in many respects, there's been a flourishing of this, an exposure, I suppose, of the spiritual force and the capacity, the physical capacity of the revolution in Iran. And that's what's being seen today and also seen, of course, in the presence of millions of people on the street of Iran.
Well, exactly. I mean, more, again, remarkable images coming out there. Mr. Anderson, allow me to momentarily come back to you. Let me go ahead and bring it back to the studio to our esteemed guest joining us here, a professor at the University of Tehran, Professor Hassan Sharif. Professor, I do want to ask you in regards to what we had heard earlier from our correspondent, Mariam, there at Azadi Square. She was saying that a lot of the people have been talking about how, yes, at the moment there is, of course, a signed deal and that the military operations are suspended, but of course that the enemy only understands understands the language of missiles, and that, of course, there is still an ongoing war in Gaza, in Lebanon, and all of this needs to end. This is what they're calling for. The question I want to ask you is in regards to his final message, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei's final message, his last televised message before being martyred. He spoke of a nation that will not capitulate to anyone in the face of coercion. I mean, in his final hours, do you personally believe that he was speaking more to Iran or to perhaps the waiting world of the freedom seekers and everyone who is currently facing oppression?
It's actually the latter, as you mentioned, that he was actually addressing to all those human beings all over the world that still have a humanity in them, to stand up for Palestine, to stand up for Lebanon, to stand up against any oppression and any tyrannical power. And the biggest of them, which even mentioned in the Holy Quran, that وَقَاتِلُوا أَئِمَّةُ الْكُفْرِ means go and be in battle with the leaders of the sort of these tyrannical powers. And that is America at the moment. And literally, as I said, the Zionist regime is just acting as a sort of a vicious dog for the American purposes. So, and the way to tame a vicious dog is, unfortunately, and this is how they practice even in the West, is by beating, is by force. And this is, I would say, it's for the first time to this extent that America and the Zionist regime, and it's not just these two, we all know Germany, Italy, France, Britain, all these Persian Arab Gulf countries as well, they were involved into this. And by intelligence, by being sort of giving their land to America and these sort of regimes to fight against Iran under the pretext of that Iran is going to have a nuclear bomb. And who's literally saying this? America, who used nuclear bomb. America, who's not a member of NPT. The Zionist regime, who's not even a member of NPT and possesses nuclear bombs. So now everybody realized literally whatever they were claiming was loads of lies. And Iran is actually, and again, I'll give you another example. Actually, we need to look into this. Look at how they're hosting FIFA World Cup. Literally oppressing different nations as well, bullying them as well, and look how they treated Iranian national football team. Or even previously in Australia, how they treated Iran's national women's football team. So this shows that this enemy, this super bully, instead of I would say superpower, super bully, is actually need to be tamed. And that needs to be by force. That needs to be by uprising, as you mentioned. We must rise, and literally this "we must rise" is not just for Iranian nation, and Iran is maybe I would say in the forefront of this, but other people all over the world, they need to rise. I'm going to address Jordan in particular. I'm going to address Egypt, that you are sharing your borders with Palestine. You're calling yourself Arabs? You're calling yourself, you have Arabic dignity? No. You're calling yourself Muslim? I don't believe that, because Muslims would not be doing this. You need to support. Look at Yemen. Yemen stopped the supply of the ports in the occupied Palestine. What you guys are doing. And even Turkey, I'm going to address Turkey, because right now we must rise. Anyone who has humanity in them, you need to rise. Don't wait for your puppet governments to do something. No, they're not going to do anything. Even they might, as you said, condemn verbally, but in their action, such as Turkey, they even providing, I don't know, fruit and veg to the Zionist regime. They're providing steel for artillery that the Zionist regime is producing, and yet they're calling themselves Muslim. We must rise. Today is just like Ashura. Every day we say, Kullu yawmin Ashura, kullu ardin Karbala, that you all need, it's the 10th day of Muharram, that you need to stand up with Imam Hussein alayhi salam, who is standing on the side of the truth, on the side of God, against the super bullies, against the tyrannical power, and we must all rise. So this is the main slogan of all this process, and not just in Iran, in Iraq and all over the world. We must rise. People, you need to rise. You can't wait so someone else will do something for you. No, you need to rise, and you need to say never that you're going to submit to their sort of these super bullies. So, and as you mentioned, Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei, even by sacrificing his blood, and not just himself,
yes,
his family alongside him, he paved this path that we all must rise.
Well, exactly. I mean, I like you very much for elaborating on that point of we must rise, because I mean, as our viewers can see, the Iranian people, the foreign, of course, everyone, foreigners, everyone who's participating in the streets of the capital of Tehran, and we're going to continue to bring you this live coverage coming to you the next few days, as we have continued to remind you, if you're wanting to participate tomorrow, of course, in Qom, after tomorrow on Wednesday, in the holy cities of Najaf and Karbala and neighborly and brotherly Iraq, and last but not least in Mashhad at the holy shrine of Imam Reza in Mashhad. And again, a quick reminder from the spokesperson of the committee, continuing to say that the people of Iran in all of these specifically three cities, and of course as a neighboring Iraq has also said, that the people there have opened their homes, have opened their Husseinis, have opened their mosques, and there's public locations for anyone coming into the country, know that they have somewhere to attend that will be hosting them during this very historic event. Mr. Anderson, let me go ahead and cross back over to you in regards to something that has been spoken, of course, but I'd like to get your elaboration and take on it, is in regards to what we've been witnessing. We know that Iran's been over the past 47 years, going to the 48th year, sanctions, war, and so much internal and external, so many conflicts, so many problems, so many issues, and yet with the leadership of Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, some analysts, some experts have said that if it wasn't for him, we'd be another, for example, another country where unfortunately terrorism has advanced and the people are not as we are witness here in Iran. How would you describe the system that this one man has built for the Islamic Republic of Iran?
Well, there are many countries under sanctions, of course, and small countries have suffered more. Small countries who aren't self-sufficient, who have are fragmented. Of course, it's a way to crush small countries, and we know the suffering that the people of Cuba have gone through with the sanctions. The people of Syria were ground down. Even so-called partial sanctions against the people of Iraq and Lebanon, for example, have been very powerful destroyers of social cohesion and so on. But one of the things about Iran is not just that it's a large country, not just that it's capable of being self-sufficient, but that cohesion and the resistance, the shared values. Of course, in the case of Iran, it comes from the Shia tradition and the tradition of sacrifice, and in the faith of standing up to the great bully in the world. I mean, Iran is not the only country that stands up to the great bully, but it's become a leader in that respect, basically, and the cohesion of the people behind that effort has been very important. Had the enemy been able to infiltrate to the extent that they could break up that cohesion to make substantial blocks but the enemy has been left really attacking from the outside, sending in outside mercenaries and so on. So the cohesion, the resilience, the steadfastness of the people has been absolutely important to support this process that the leadership has carried out. And of course, let's not forget the security forces, the IRGC, which have been, the capacity is now admired across the world and a source of pride for the Iranian people. So that's why I think this process, the terrible war, which has cost a lot in damage, in lost lives, began by slaughtering school children. There's terrible grief, there's terrible sadness in Iran, but nevertheless, there's this building pride, I think, and I think it's visible across other cultures, as we said before, to see that pride, the fact that Iran has been able to defend itself and defeat the great arrogant power of the region.
Well, on that point, Mr. Anderson, please stay with us, but I'm going to go ahead and thank our studio guest here joining us, a professor at the University of Tehran, Professor Ahsan Sharif. It was a pleasure to have you with us, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, viewers, we continue to bring you again these live images from the capital of Tehran, where the funeral ceremonies have started off in the capital. We'll be moving on, of course, to the cities that we have been mentioning. It's important to know and let the world and all of our viewers to know that martyrdom is not the ending. It is the highest station of victory, and that the martyr leader has attained what we all aspire to do. Let's remind the viewers that, again, his banner will continue to be held. We will continue on his path to liberate Al-Qudus and never, ever bow to the arrogance of the oppressors. As here in the capital of Tehran for today, we are bidding farewell to our leader, our Imam, and our father, but we do so with the promise that we will continue to be his soldiers and we will never abandon the field and never surrender. Well, viewers, I'm going to go ahead and in just a minute hand over this ongoing rolling coverage to my esteemed colleague, but for now, thank you very much for watching.
Well, you're watching live footage coming in from Tehran. You can see this is the fourth day into the prestigious ceremonies planned for the funeral of Ayatollah Khamenei, the martyred leader of the Islamic Revolution. You're watching the huge crowds of people gathering and incessantly walking by the side of the container and the truck that is carrying the caskets of Ayatollah Khamenei and his family members. And the little one, which really breaks the heart of every human being in the world, the 14-month-old granddaughter of Ayatollah Khamenei. So you are watching live footage coming in, and you can see, yes, there's the truck carrying the caskets. You can see the procession, which is absolutely beautiful. It's I always say that since the beginning of this week, these are proud moments for Iran's history. These are sad but proud moments for Iran's history, where the leader of the country was the first Iranian who was martyred in the 40-day war. He was right there at the front. Of course, I'm sure every single human being in the world knows that if the leader wanted to